The Pantheon has been standing in Rome for 1900 years. Not as a ruin, not as a restored replica, as a functioning building with its original concrete dome still intact. Still, to this day, the largest unreinforced concrete dome ever built by human hands. And here's what makes that genuinely strange. The concrete Romans used actually gets stronger over time. Ours starts cracking within decades. We landed on the moon. We mapped the human genome. And we spent most of the 20th century pouring an inferior version of something a Roman engineer figured out 2,000 years ago. The history of concrete is the history of civilization, and most people have never thought about it once. I'm the voice behind Object Origins, a channel about the hidden histories of the things that quietly run the world. Today, that thing is concrete. By the end of this video, you'll understand how one material built an empire, then vanished for 1,000 years, then came back and reshaped the entire planet, and why the way we make it now might be one of the most consequential problems nobody is talking about. There's a detail toward the end about sand, ordinary sand, that I think will genuinely change how you look at a beach. Around 126 AD, Roman engineers completed the Pantheon in the center of Rome. The dome they built, cast from a single continuous pour of concrete, spans 43 meters. No steel reinforcement, no modern admixtures, just volcanic ash, seawater, lime, and rocks. That dome has survived earthquakes, floods, and the collapse of the entire civilization that built it. For most of modern history, we assumed the Romans just got lucky, that maybe their volcanic aggregate was unusually durable. Then researchers began studying Roman marine structures, harbor walls and breakwaters that had been submerged in the Mediterranean for 2,000 years, and found something that flipped the conventional assumption entirely.
The seawater hadn't degraded the concrete, it had reinforced it. The interaction between seawater and the volcanic ash created new mineral crystals, tobermorite and phillipsite, that grew inside the concrete over centuries, filling cracks before they could spread. Modern Portland cement concrete does the opposite. It reacts poorly with seawater, leaches calcium, and develops microfractures under thermal stress within decades. The Roman concrete secret wasn't a secret in the dramatic sense. It was just a specific combination of local volcanic materials and a mixing process that nobody in medieval or early modern Europe bothered to preserve. When Rome fell, the knowledge didn't get stored somewhere. It got used until the people who understood it were gone. And for roughly 1,000 years, Europe built primarily with timber and cut stone, because no one remembered the better option existed. The rediscovery didn't come from an archaeologist. It came from a bricklayer in Leeds. In 1824, a man named Joseph Aspidin filed a patent for an artificial cement he made by burning limestone and clay together at high heat, then grinding the result into powder. He called it Portland cement, named after the pale limestone quarried on the Isle of Portland, which his product supposedly resembled. Aspidin's patent was deliberately vague. He didn't want competitors to replicate the process exactly. But the underlying chemistry was real. When mixed with water, Portland cement undergoes a hardening reaction that produces a strong, workable, scalable building material. The timing mattered enormously. Aspidin's patent landed squarely in the middle of the Industrial Revolution, when Europe and North America were in desperate need of cheap, fast construction materials for railways, canals, sewers, and bridges. Portland cement provided exactly that. Within a generation, the cement history of the modern world had begun. By the early 20th century, concrete wasn't just a structural material, it was starting to become an ideology. Le Corbusier, the Swiss-French architect whose ideas dominated 20th century urban planning, once described a house as a machine for living in. Concrete was his material of choice, and the reasoning was almost utopian. A material you could pour into any shape, repeat at any scale, build quickly for people who needed housing right now. Brutalism, the architectural movement that gave us exposed concrete tower blocks across Europe, South America, and the Soviet Union, was not, despite how it reads today, born from indifference. It was born from a genuine belief that rational design and industrial materials could solve the problem of mass human shelter. That belief aged unevenly. Some brutalist buildings became icons, the Barbican in London, the National Theatre. Others became synonymous with failed social housing experiments, crumbling facades, and structural failures that cost governments billions to repair. Concrete had delivered on its promise as a scalable material, and exposed, in doing so, the limits of treating architecture as purely a delivery mechanism. Meanwhile, somewhere else entirely, concrete was being deployed at a scale that made every previous application look modest. The Three Gorges Dam on the Yangtze River in China required more concrete than any construction project in recorded history. The numbers are worth sitting with. Roughly 27 million cubic meters of concrete poured over more than a decade, creating a reservoir that stretches roughly 600 kilometers inland. To move the water displaced by the reservoir, approximately 1.3 million people were relocated. The dam now generates around 100 terawatt-hours of electricity annually, roughly equivalent to 10 to 15 large coal plants running continuously. It is, depending on your frame, either one of the greatest feats of engineering ever accomplished, or one of the most dramatic examples of concrete's capacity to reshape not just cities, but entire ecosystems and human geographies. Possibly both. The dam exists. The Yangtze exists differently now. And the concrete that made it possible came from the same fundamental process Joseph Aspdin patented in 1824, scaled up by a factor that would have been incomprehensible to him. That scale is exactly where the problem starts. Worth saying clearly, this isn't a video about doom. The material facts here are documented, the trade-offs are real, and reasonable people are working on them. But the scale is significant, and understanding it matters. Cement production, the process of burning limestone at high temperatures to create the binding agent in concrete, accounts for roughly 8% of global CO2 emissions. That's more than the entire global aviation industry. It's not because cement plants are uniquely dirty. It's because the chemistry is the problem. About half of cement's CO2 comes not from burning fuel, but from the limestone itself releasing carbon dioxide when it's heated. That's inherent to the material. You can decarbonize the energy source, but you can't decarbonize the chemical reaction without fundamentally changing what you're making. The concrete and climate change relationship is one of the more uncomfortable tensions in modern infrastructure planning, because the developing world needs concrete. Roads, schools, hospitals, water treatment, the infrastructure of a decent standard of living is largely built from it. Telling countries that are currently building out that infrastructure to stop or slow down involves a degree of moral complexity that easy headlines tend to skip. Concrete requires three things: cement, water, and aggregate. The aggregate, the sand and gravel that makes up roughly 70% of concrete's volume, is where the story gets strange. Not just any sand works. Desert sand is too smooth. The grains have been rounded by wind erosion over millennia, and they don't bind well with cement paste. The sand that works, coarse, angular, river-mined, or coastal sand, is, by some estimates, the second most extracted natural resource on Earth after water, and we are running through it faster than it replenishes. The sand crisis isn't a future problem. In India, illegal sand mining operations, often called sand mafias, have been linked to documented violence, including attacks on officials who attempted to enforce mining regulations. Entire stretches of riverbed have been stripped in years. Coastal communities in Southeast Asia have watched beaches disappear within a generation, not because of sea level rise, but because the sand was dug out and shipped to construction sites. The most used material in the world requires a raw ingredient that is quietly disappearing from the places we need it most. There's a number that has stayed with me since I started researching this. Humanity has produced so much concrete across the 20th century and into this one that if you took the total volume ever poured and spread it evenly across every landmass on Earth, you would cover the entire surface of the planet in a layer roughly 2 millimeters thick. 2 millimeters, the whole surface. The history of concrete is not a history of excess exactly. It's a history of a solution that worked so well, it became the world. And now the world can't function without it. The Romans built one thing, and it's still standing. We built everything, and we're only now starting to understand what that costs. If this one made you think, subscribe to Object Origins. I dig into the hidden histories of the things that quietly shape the world every week. And if you found this worth your time, a like genuinely helps this reach more people. There's more on the channel that picks up where this one leaves off.